Hello, and welcome back to Neotopia, the podcast, a new place to learn about theology. I'm your host and teacher, Jillian Mason Shannon, and today we are on part 3 of a little series within the series of the evolution of human consciousness in the biblical narrative. The contemplative gaze is a spiritual practice. In Christian religious circles, it's sometimes called Visio Divino. And it is a practice in which you sit and gaze at something, usually a piece of nature or a piece of art, as a way to practice mindful observation and to find inspiration in the natural world. After a period of contemplation, your mind relaxes into the present moment and you begin to see things in a new way. You might adopt a vision that lets you see beyond the surface reality, which then helps develop the tools for compassion and understanding. Music producer and visionary extraordinaire Rick Rubin suggests this practice of being still and tuning into the world around in order to gain inspiration and a new vision as artists. A visionary is not one who can see into the future, but one who reads reality differently, so differently to the point that they can pave the way for an envisioned future. Moses, our protagonist of Act 2 of our biblical movie, was such a visionary. Consider his first time meeting God, a climactic moment in which he saw things anew, perhaps as a result of a contemplative gaze. He attentively gazed upon the strangest sight, a bush that was on fire but wasn't consumed. He said, I must turn aside and look at this great sight and see why the bush is not burned up. And when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called out to him from the bush, Moses, Moses. He said, here I am. And then when Moses realized who he was talking to, he hid his face. He didn't want to be seen. He tried to refuse his calling as a leader because he insists he's no good with words. What about the brother, Aaron? He's eloquent, use him. But maybe it wasn't words that were needed now. Maybe what was needed was the ability to be quiet, be still, and see. Maybe God wanted the one who just had to pause and turn aside and look at the great sight of the burning bush. In the following chapters, we see the Israelites are enslaved by the Egyptians, and we see God's attempt to liberate them through Moses' leadership. After the Israelites are successfully freed from enslavement, Moses goes up to Mount Sinai to meet God again. And when he comes back down from that mountain, he has a new vision, a vision for the good life. A vision for a life for his people that would lead to true liberation. And here we get the 10 Commandments. Think of this stage of human consciousness as the teenage years. Okay, in Abraham, we have the child years, command, obey, reward. Here we have ground rules like we might give to a teen. Parents are not going to be able to be holding the hand of their teenager at all times, just like they were with the young children. So they have to trust that they're mentally trained enough to make good choices on their own. But we still give them some bumpers, some rules, like a curfew, a bedtime, a time limit on the phone, a required grade minimum, and so on, so that they have some boundaries as they grow in maturity and the ability to be fully free to make their own choices. The 10 Commandments begins with God reminding us of who God is. I am the one who freed you from slavery. So if God is in the business of liberation, then what we're about to hear is about liberation. They've been freed from the Egyptians, but now they're going to hear what it takes to be truly free even from themselves. Commandments 1 and 2. You shall have no other gods before me, and you shall not make for yourself an idol. Think of the David Foster Wallace scene. If you need to go back to episode 3, where he discusses what happens when we worship. Worshiping is orienting our lives toward a certain thing. We all worship something. It's just how we're built. And this is a quote from him: "The compelling reason to maybe choose some sort of God or spiritual type of thing to worship is that pretty much anything else will eat you alive. Worship power, and you will end up feeling weak and afraid. Worship your intellect, you will end up feeling stupid, a fraud, always on the verge of being found out. Worship beauty, you will always feel ugly. Worship money, you will never have enough," and so on and so on. But the insidious thing about these forms of worship is that they're not evil or sinful. They're unconscious. So, the beginning of the Ten Commandments is pointing out that we don't have to just rely on the default settings of the world that encourage us to worship money, power, and things like beauty, because the only ones who benefit from those are the ones who sell it to us. No, we have a choice. At every moment, we have a conscious choice. And if we choose God, the one who's in the business of liberation, we will find true freedom. 3, you shall not use the Lord's name in vain. This does not mean say, "Oh my gosh," instead of "Oh my God." This is to use God as a defendant for our own vanity, our own agenda. When we pray, sometimes people end the prayer with, "In your name I pray," but the whole prayer prior was a list of things that we want. So it's saying what we want, restating our agenda, and then stamping God's name on it. I pray that such and such pays for what they did to me, because obviously if I hate this person, you do too. Or worse, invading another country, enacting war, saying it's for God. This is one of the more extreme examples of enacting one's personal agenda and claiming God's name on it. So this commandment is a commitment to conform your will to God rather than the other way around. 4 and 5, remember the Sabbath and honor your father and mother. These two stand out right in the middle of the commandments as different from the other 8 because they're stated in the positive. Remember and honor. All the others begin with "thou shalt not" or "do not." So perhaps we pay a different kind of attention to these. If the first few are about orienting ourselves toward God, and the last are about our ethics and how we treat one another, these in the middle are about how we understand ourselves and our place in the world. Remember and honor. Both active present phrases that aren't necessarily outwardly recognizable, but they're about reshaping and rewiring our brain. Like stopping and noticing a bush that is on fire, but doesn't burn. Remember the Sabbath encourages us to pause, to remember. It's a countercultural action against the go, 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 forward-moving motion of the world. It's rebellious to stop, pause, see, reflect. But it's easier said than done. We want to fidget, we want to fix. We think that if we stop, the world can't be sustained without us. But really, we just want distraction from our thoughts. Pascal says, all of humanity's problems stem from the inability to sit quietly in a room alone. What if, instead of distracting from our thoughts, we faced them? Honor your father and mother. Another reminder of who we are, the fact that we are inherently, naturally relational beings. We're not just plopped onto this earth disconnected from everything else. We came from the earth. Bone of my bones, flesh of my flesh. In this honoring, we acknowledge that life is a gift, not a given. We are begotten, not manufactured. We enter the world already a part of something. Someone is responsible for us. We are responsible for others. And we're dependent on more than ourselves. This commandment removes the illusion of human separateness for all. It's a great segue into the final set of commandments. Do not kill, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not bear false witness, do not envy. It kind of seems like they go from the most serious to the least. Do not kill seems to be more consequential than do not envy your neighbor's house, right? Certainly the consequences are more harmful of killing another human being, but all the commandments below are actually their own forms of killing. Do not commit adultery. When you commit adultery, you kill the trust and stability of the person most intimately dependent on you. You steal from someone, you kill their right to their possessions, and they experience a death of what they had. When you lie about someone, you kill their reputation, their dignity. And when you covet what your neighbor has, you kill your own opportunity for a full, flourishing life. Each commandment gets deeper into the psyche, showing that while it's most obviously necessary to treat others with dignity and respect for their sake, it's also for your own sake. Remember that this is all about true liberation, liberating us from ourselves, the ways in which our way of life and our thought patterns enslave us. So whether or not we're literally enslaved, like the Israelites to the Egyptians, or we're technically free, we can still be eaten alive in our own minds. And the way we view God and the way we treat others directly affects our own experience of ourselves. Or as Beyoncé says in her album about the consequences of infidelity, when you hurt me, you hurt yourself. When you lie to me, you lie to yourself. When you play me, you play yourself. When you love me, you love yourself. Love God herself. Moses saw a bush inflamed but not burning. He had to look. He hid his face. Then he opened himself up again. He operated face to face with God, and he ended up a visionary, inspired with a revolutionary vision for the good life. Jesus, our protagonist of Act 3, takes things one step further. He says, you've heard it said in the commandments, do not kill. Well, I say don't even have angry thoughts. You've heard it said, do not commit adultery. Well, I say don't even have lustful thoughts. Was Jesus overly ambitious, the thought police? Was he prude? Or did he recognize that the true transformation necessary begins in the mind? 10 commandments end in the mind. Do not envy. Do not have jealous thoughts. And Act 3 ushers in a leap in human consciousness with Jesus, who operates mind to mind with God. Until next time.